Hello, and welcome to another Sitecore Stories. Today I'm going to be catching up with Reshma from the Connect team, and we're going to be talking all about their API platform. So, let's jump in. Okay, thanks for joining me today, Reshma.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Sure, so I know we're going to be talking about Connect and the API platform today. Before we dig into all that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at Sitecore?
Of course. So I'm Reshma Narayanan Kutty. I'm the product manager for Sitecore CDP and Sitecore Connect. I've been with Sitecore for just over 3 years now, during which I've had the opportunity to work on some exciting products, including Sitecore Personalize and building the cloud SDK quite recently. And in my current role, I am focused on delivering solutions or driving solutions that enhance our customer data platform and also enabling customers to build more low code integrations between Sitecore applications and third party tools within the low code ecosystem of Sitecore Connect. Uh, I'm I'm also based in Dublin, Ireland, where I've been living for just over 6 years now.
Ah, nice, very good. Okay, so before we dive into the product itself, can you talk a little bit about the problems we saw and like why we built out this feature?
Of course, yeah. Through conversations with our customers and partners, we realized there was a recurring challenge that they had due to limitations with webhooks in Connect. So, mainly issues around support for authentication mechanisms, usage quotas, rate limiting, and ability to deliver custom responses. And as we dug deeper, we also realized there was a growing demand for the way APIs are handled and managed. So it made sense that we took this feedback and provided API platform as an additional add-on to our Sitecore Connect customers.
Yeah, nice. And how does this feature help to solve the problem then?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, API platform is an add-on available to existing Sitecore Connect customers, and Connect is an integration platform. It's a no-code, low-code integration platform. So, API platform simplifies the process of creating and managing APIs. So, in Connect, you could create recipes that are uh, like automation workflows and expose this entire recipe functionality as APIs, and this APIs could be exposed or shared with partners and clients who can use them for their needs. And the best part is you need to authorize these users. So only authorized users or clients get access to use this APIs and trigger the recipe functions. And it also has advanced options like enabling usage quotas and rate limiting. So you have control over who uses these APIs and limits on how many API calls can happen within a set time limit. And with API platform, you can set response schemas, so there's ability to deliver custom responses uh, to users accessing these APIs. And like I said, robust authentication mechanisms being supported. So all of this solves the problems that most of our customers have, and all this within the low code ecosystem of Connect. So it's a win-win.
That sounds awesome. And I guess, can we see this in action? I think people want to see show it off.
Yes, the fun part. So once the API platform has been enabled in Sitecore Connect, it is available as an option in tools. So when accessing API platform, it lands you on this dashboard, which gives you an overall view of how the APIs are performing, the number of requests that's happened in the last few days, if there's any errors or policy violations, what's the different metrics that's useful for customers to take a quick check at the performance of the APIs. So in this demo, what we'll do is I have a lead generation form already created in XM Cloud. So this form will collect certain customer data like first name, last name, and email, and create a record in Sitecore CDP, which is our data platform. And I've created a recipe in Connect that would do this. So if I go into my projects, I have a recipe that says update contacts in CDP. And this is triggered by the API. So let's expose this functionality as an API and see how to authorize just XMC forms to send data to CDP. So in API platform, I could create a collection, and select the project of the folder that my recipe lives in, and have a couple of API recipes. So I'll choose the recipe that I want to expose, which is updating contacts in CDP. Could create collection name saying forms to CDP, give it a versioning. So this is another benefit where it kind of has the full lifecycle management of APIs. And I see this API collection. Yeah, so this has already created an endpoint that says update contacts in CDP, and it's a get. So I want to push this. So let me change this to post, and it's the recipe that says update contacts in CDP, and it also has created an endpoint path. So this is something that you can customize. I could customize it into anything else, or I can just leave it like this. Save. And you also have a test request feature that allows you to test even before you configure things. So for that, I need to activate the endpoint, ensure it is linked to the right recipe, which is correct. And once activated, let's try it out. Let's see if I can just add some test user. Yep. So because I've configured it to give me a custom response, the response I configured was returning the first name. And like you see, it's a 200 successfully executed and gives me 200. Now let's add some authentication and configure this in XM Cloud. So the recipe and the API endpoint works as expected. Now in going back to API collections, in forms, this is the collection. Let me add a client. And a new access profile for, let's say, XMC forms. And the API collection that I need to add is forms to CDP. Let's keep it as auth token. So it gives me an auth token here. And this is what we need to configure in our forms. So this is the forms data. I'll go back and let's manage the webhook that it's associated with. So I have a webhook created, but it's without authentication. Let's authenticate this webhook with an API key. So this webhook is without authentication. So let's authorize this with the new API endpoint and the auth token we just received. So I go edit, apply an API token, and the token I just received. Now I go to the collection and get the endpoint that I need to add to the new URL. Save. Now we see that this forms is not, the webhook has an API key. So the forms that uses this webhook has to be authorized. It's basically authorized to use the API that I just exposed. Now, yep, the webhook is right. I save this. And once in the form, let's try. So I can give it as a test user with yeah. So this is how our CDP system looks with guests being added as a record. So here, when I submit, there's the payload that gets sent. Yep. So So we'll see that the form has been submitted successfully and the webhook request hit. Let's go to API platform and see the jobs. I go into the specific recipe, update contacts. I see that there's a new API request. Let's see the parameters. Test user. This is what we sent in the API. Custom action. with the details and successfully added, which means I got the first name as a response. So now if I go into CDP and then do a refresh, I see that the new test user has been added. So the recipe functionality worked as expected, and it was authorized only to forms. So if the authorization and the auth key has been correct, the webhook hits and the recipe functionality will be loaded correctly. And if you go into Connect, there's also another way for you to check for logs if there's any issues that you face during setup. You go into logs, and then you see there's a 401 unauthorized that happened, or like there's a couple of 200, there's a couple of unauthorized, which means even if the API endpoint does get exposed, users who have only been authorized to access this endpoint can access it, or they wouldn't be able to run the functionality. You would get an unauthorized. So this is the benefit that API platform provides to more advanced users of Sitecore Connect. And if you see, like a non-technical person could just go about and create and expose these endpoints quite easily.
That's awesome. So is API platform available to all customers of Connect?
So it's a paid add-on, which means users having specific use cases around API management would need to reach out to their account executive to get this enabled.
Awesome, that makes sense. Okay, so I guess before we finish up, if anyone has any questions about API platform itself or the other products that you said you're in charge of now, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Okay, so we have a documentation space. Sitecore Connect has its dedicated documentation space, and we are also ramping up documentation to have more comprehensive information. That's the first place for any questions, and we also have more use cases and security benefits specific to Sitecore products available in the documentation. And as of for me, I'm quite active on Slack community. So if you have questions or simply want to reach out with feedback, I'm always happy to connect and gather more feedback from our customers and partners. Feel free to reach out to me or even say a quick hi.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today, Reshma. Hope I get to speak to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks again for having me.